Well, good afternoon, everyone. Another day. It's a Friday, so that's good. Ready for the weekend. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about tone. I bring that up because while I was walking around lunch, and as I do every day, I walk around. I'm usually talking with my wife while I'm doing it. I call her just about every lunch period. I'm at work, and so I'm talking with her, and I'm walking, and as I'm walking through where I work at is in a university area. So where I'm walking at, I'm just walking through the university, just taking in the sights and whatnot, all university stuff here. And so I'm just walking, and when I get to University Center, not only are there, Jehovah's Witnesses, they're always around, standing on a lot of corners in the university area. So that's cool. They don't do anything but just stand there, and they're well dressed, and they have their little pamphlets, and they just stand there, and they're for the most part very friendly. But then there was another group that he didn't have a megaphone. I thought it was a megaphone at first, but basically it was just a little plastic thing they had cut to direct his, voice forward. And he's shouting through this plastic thing. It looks like a megaphone, but it's not. Just a funnel. He's shouting through this thing, and he's preaching. He's witnessing. Not preaching, he's witnessing. Okay, and they have these signs and that say various things. One of them says women are weaker than man. The other one, love and not lust, and God is came to save the unsaved, and all that stuff. Okay, and for the most part, I agree with almost everything they were saying. But this is what I'm talking about today. We're talking about tone today. So I asked my wife. I said, okay, so you have the Jehovah's Witness across the street in the aisle, in the median that's between the major street that runs through the university. They're standing in the median, which is a very large median, and it's a very large street, so they have a median that goes across the crosswalk. And so they're standing there doing, just standing there smiling, and again, well dressed. They're always well dressed. And this other group is standing on the other side, just shouting away. And again, most of what they're saying I agree with. But here's the kicker. This is why we bring up tone, because something I always say, obviously I'm not the one that invented it, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that is so very true. It is not what you say, it's how you say it. Okay? And so the ones that were, and I asked my wife, I was like, look, which one do you think is more the effective witness? The ones just standing there looking professional, dressed well and smiling? Or this other group just wearing t-shirt and jeans? They're older folks, except for one person. They were all older white folks. One white lady, I think 3 white guys, and one Asian gentleman who was younger than the rest. And they're shouting. I mean, literally shouting. But what they're saying is, for the most part, factual and true. But they're shouting. And while I was talking to my wife and asking about that, I had a young lady that was walking across the street to the other side, literally flipped the middle finger to the gentleman that was shouting through that little funnel, which is, of course, disrespectful and rude. And the young man ahead of standing in front looked back when I said that. He's like, yeah, that's not right. I was like, no, it's not right. It's disrespectful and it's rude. I said, he has just as much right to say whatever he wants as anybody else does. I said, you don't have to agree with it, but he has every right to say it. And it is very rude and what's the word I'm looking for? Childish, and I can't think of other words, to flip somebody off because you don't agree with it. We know Christians are under attack. It's nothing new, but it's gotten worse in these modern times and days because nobody agrees with Christian, which equates to most often not traditional values. Okay. All right. So, so the young folk are, flipping the middle finger more than one time, by the way. And of course, the guy probably didn't even care. I'm sure he saw it, but didn't care. He's not letting that bother him. He's there for a reason and a purpose. So, and I talked to the young man, and he's like, yeah, we just need to, we're just here to have, conversation. I said, that's why you go to college. I said, not only to get an education, but to not only learn new things, but be able to discover new things and be able to have discussions about things, even if you don't agree with them. That's what college is for. Now, that's not what the colleges are now, but that's what college is for. Because a lot of times when you go to college, it's, you are, saying you are there to learn new things and discover new things and not be judged because you might say something that somebody else doesn't like, but you're supposed to have open discussion. So I agree with the young man. And so while he was going one direction and I'm going another, I told my wife, I said, okay, well, who do you think is more the effective witness? The one not doing any talking or the one shouting? Because he wasn't talking, he was shouting. Now I understand, he has to be a little louder and be more vocal because he's outdoors. But it wasn't coming off that way. It was coming off as literally you're shouting people. Okay? You were literally shouting people. And so when I asked my wife that, she's like, well, that's a good question. Because what it ended up turning into was not what you say, but how you say it. It was turning into a tone discussion. Okay? Because me and my wife agreed that shouting is not the way to do it. One, because people don't respect either preachers or people doing the word like that anymore. Okay? So that's one deal. But two is when people feel like you're shouting at them, they're not going to listen to what you got to say. Okay? They're not going to listen to what you have to say. Again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. What he was saying, for the most part, I was agreeing with. I was like, you go, man. Handle your business. It was how he was saying it. Okay? How he was saying it wasn't effective. His witness was being drowned out by his shouting. Just like it's not just in witnessing, God's word. Is it anything you do? If you're trying to sell a car, how effective are you going to be selling a car if you're shouting at somebody? Coaching, mentoring, having a discussion. How effective are you going to be if you're shouting at people? Shouting at people, not just shouting, but shouting at people, or if they feel you're shouting at them. Shouting is not as effective as having a calm tone in your voice or a normal tone. It's not as effective. And it's been proven not to be as effective. So as we were having this discussion, me and Nicole agreed that what he was saying wasn't the problem, it was how he was saying it. And then the sign was also tone deaf to a certain degree. Because the sign, the one that the woman was holding, was saying that women are weaker than men. Okay, in what context? In what context are you talking about? because the Bible does state that the woman is the weaker vessel. But you have to be more specific, because in our days and time, women think that they're equal to men in every and all aspects. Heck, we even have women that think they're men, and vice versa. So you have to be specific. So the sign itself was tone deaf, because it was very general in what it was trying to convey. Biologically, on average, men are stronger than women physically. We're made that way. You don't have to agree with it. It's facts. It's biology. Okay? Our bones are different. The way the muscles, everything. Men are created differently than women. It's just that simple. Okay? It just so happens that the reason we're different than women for the most part is physically. Now, that's normal men. I'm not talking about women that bodybuild and work out. Then in a lot of cases they're stronger than a lot of the men they encounter, unless they're around men that bodybuild with them. Okay? So women that bodybuild or work out or are fitness models or whatever are going to be bigger or in better shape than normal men who don't. Okay? Because we know we live in an obese culture. So for the most part, women that work out are going to be, especially the ones that bodybuild, are going to be bigger than normal men because they're bodybuilding. Okay. So I'm not talking about them. I'm just talking about, on average, normal human beings, men and women. Men are created differently than women. Women can do things men can't, and men can do things women can't. Okay? We are made to be physically stronger than a woman. That's just how we're made. Okay? God has given men the mantle of leadership. I'm not saying women can't lead. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. Get mad at God, don't get mad at me. Okay? So there are differences. Women can have children, men cannot. Okay? Women are more emotional than men. Okay? Women were created to be helpmeets for the men. That means they have strengths that we don't. Okay? Men and women complement each other because we have differences. Not complimenting nobody if you're the same. Okay? Men and women complement each other because we have differences that men don't, but women, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Men and women have differences, so when you bring them together, they complement each other. Because there are some things men can't do, and there's some of the things women can't do, but vice versa can do. That is, that is the main thing. Okay? That is the main thing. So, tone. The sign was tone deaf because it just gave a generalization. But you're in a university setting where most of these young ladies don't agree with that statement because they don't believe in biblical or traditional values or anything else for that matter. They believe they can do everything a man can. Okay, that's fine. So you're already going to get some backlash from that because you're not explaining yourself in the sign. Maybe that sign is there for shock value. And if that's the case, okay, you're getting somebody's attention. Might not be a good attention, but you're getting somebody's attention. So I get it, they may have been using it as shock value. Okay. But we discussed that too. That needs to be explained. And maybe he did, and I wasn't there when he was shouting through his little thing. I don't know. Maybe he did explain it. Though I doubt it because he was pretty blunt in what he was talking about. He was very verbatim, biblically, and very blunt, which I have no problem with, but the shouting is you lose your witness. So, in saying all that, the tone was off. Will he be successful in convincing somebody, one, to listen to him, or to give their life to Christ? Probably not, with the tone he was using. He might have been better off not saying anything and letting the signs do the talking, because he had several signs out there, about 4 or 5 signs. I think each person was carrying a sign, each person was carrying a sign, even the one that was shouting. They may have been more effective if they just let the signs do the talking, even if the signs were tone deaf, even if it was for shock value, or even if they were used to get your attention. That would have been more effective than shouting. Again, just my opinion. I'm sure there are some out there that would disagree. But witnessing is an art. It's not something that everybody is really good at doing. Witnessing is part talking, but also part negotiating, and part knowing how to convince and be effective in speech. So it's multi-layered. Witnessing is multi-layered. Essentially, you're like a car salesman, but for God. And you're not selling cars, you're selling the word. And really, you're not selling it. I'm just using that as an analogy. Okay? You have to be good at it. I used to work commission, and I sucked because I didn't know how to sell nothing. So hence, I was very bad. Okay? But there are people out there that are very good at selling things and convincing people to buy things. And that's the kind of that's the kind of person you have to be when you witness. You have to be effective. And in my opinion, that group of folks wasn't being effective because they had the wrong tone. It'd have been better if they kept their mouths shut and let the signs do the talking. Heck, those Jehovah's Witnesses that are across the street might be more effective. And I don't agree with a lot of what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe in, but they were probably more effective than the folks that were shouting. Because you can use a megaphone and not sound like you're shouting. Because there was a gentleman who used to do something similar. He used to set out all his signs and would camp out right off the main road next to a Walmart in the grass. And he would witness and preach to you, but he didn't sound like he was shouting at you. There's a big difference. And if this guy had a megaphone, it'd have been horrible. Tone is everything. How you speak is more important than what you speak. I could say something that everybody dislikes, but if I talk about it in such a way that it makes them pause, then I've become an effective communicator, even if they don't agree with what I'm saying. Effective communication. Maybe that's how I should title this. Effective communication. Effective communication is how you say what you say. It's not what you say. It's how you say it. I'm just going to change the title of this vlog. I was just going to say tone, but I'm going to put effective communication. The reason people fail in what they say is because they're not effective in their communication. And in a lot of cases, it's your tone and how you say things. Salesmen, preachers, and the like are effective because they know how to say something is not necessarily what they're saying. The best car salesmen are the ones that know how to talk to you and make you feel like you want to buy something. They make you feel like, I really want to buy something from this person. I'm not leaving here until I get something because this person knows how to sell a car to me. Those are the folks that are effective. Those are the folks that are going to get the commission. When I worked commission, I worked at Sears. Back in the day, I worked at Sears. I worked in electronics. I was great at selling vacuum cleaners and phones, but couldn't sell a TV to save my life. And that's where the money is, in TVs. And management would get all in my case about it because others would sell TVs and I wouldn't. Well, part of the problem is the ones that were selling TVs wouldn't let anybody else sell TVs. They knew it, but they didn't want to get on them and make it whatever. And being a salesman is not about equity, nor is it about equality. It's about survival of the fittest. Everybody's trying to make money, but the one that knows how to sell the best makes more money. That's just the way it is. And so the same couple of people were making all the money on the TVs, and they in fact just let me stay with the phones and the vacuum cleaners. Very rarely did they sell phones and vacuum cleaners. Why? Because they were making all the money in televisions. The more televisions you sell, the more commission you make, but the more commission the store makes. Hence the reason why they were getting on my case, because I wasn't making much money for the store, or myself for that matter. There's a basic salary. There's a basic thing. People think that when you work on commission, you only make what you sell. No, that's not true. There is a base salary, but you work commission. You make above that, and you make commission for the store. So I wasn't an effective communicator in selling televisions. Televisions were much more complicated to sell than phones and vacuum cleaners. Okay, a lot easier. Or at the time I was working there, Walkmans and little CD players, stuff like that. All that stuff was easy. Okay. So in the example I was giving about this group witnessing God's word, in my opinion, they are not and will not be effective if they continue the way they witness, and that is shouting at people. Again, they'd have been better off standing there with their signs and letting the signs do the talking. And they probably would have had people come up to them. Even if they didn't agree with the sign, it would have started a conversation. That would have been more effective. Witnessing is an art. It's not just something that you can just do to do. You got to know how to witness. Just like being a salesman is an art. It's something that you have to work at to become good at. You got to be an effective communicator. Any leader worth anything has to be an effective communicator. When I was speaking at my local ROTC, Air Force ROTC, junior ROTC unit there at my son's high school, I came in uniform because I still serve. I came in uniform, and dressed to the nine. Because part of effective communication is looking good. If you look good, it's looking good. And when you look good, you feel good. So if you look good, or if you look good, then you feel good. If you feel good, then you can, well, anyways, I was trying to use a Deion Sanders quote, but I don't know. I haven't quite got it down yet to talk about communication. So, of course, as you know, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you're in the right frame of mind to communicate good. And when you communicate good, people will listen. People will be impacted. You'll be effective. So when I was speaking to this junior ROTC class, I spoke to all 6 classes. And the reason I knew that I was effective, because at the end, I at least had one person come to me and say, I really enjoyed what you said. You really hit some buttons in me. I was going through some things. I had some people come to me. That's when you know you're effective. That's when you know you're effective. Part of effective communication is also looking the part. The Jehovah's Witnesses were looking professional and they smiled. This other group, they were just jeans and t-shirts. Some of them were raggedy, had unkept beards, weren't smiling. The guy was just shouting. They weren't effective. They weren't effective. Because part of effective communication is also how you look. Because some people are visual. Okay? And so when they look at you, they're already tuned you out if they think you just look any old way. But when they look at the Jehovah's Witness and they look professional, the women are dressed all in long skirts or in pantsuits or whatever, and they all look professional, even the guys look professional, you already are being effective because you look good. You look professional. You look put together. I'm not saying that you can't witness just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is sometimes your look plays a part in effectively communicating what you're communicating. Effective communication is important. You got to not only be able to have the right tone, and people have to be able to hear you audibly, okay? But you have to, I just lost my train of thought, but you have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to be able to, when you communicate, people have to understand you. That's what I'm trying to say. They have to be able to understand what you're saying. Meaning that you have to speak clearly. No slang or any of that stuff. You have to speak clearly. I understand accents make communication a little bit more difficult. I get it. But you got to be able to speak clearly. There can't be no ambiguity in what you're trying to communicate. Okay? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And in part, how you're saying things, you also have to look the part, and people have to understand what you're saying. That little funnel he was using wasn't very good, and people totally understanding what he was saying, because it was, even though it was projecting his voice, it was also kind of muffling it at the same time. Effective communication. I use that example because I don't believe they were effective. I believe those Jehovah's Witnesses were being more effective than the other group that was shouting and actually talking and speaking. Just my opinion. Just the way I look at things. Sometimes effectively communicating doesn't mean you have to talk. Sometimes body language is an effective communicator. Sometimes a sign is a better communicator. Sometimes the way you're dressed is a better communicator. Effective communication doesn't always mean you have to open up your mouth and say something. The best leaders are the ones that know how to communicate. Period. If you can't communicate, you can't be a leader. It's just that simple. You have to be able to communicate verbally. I'm not saying I'm a great leader by any stretch of the imagination, but I know I'm effective because when I teach, people understand what I'm talking about. And I've been a teacher for a long time. I know how to give a class, and I know how to teach a class, and I know how to be effective in teaching that class, so when people leave, there is no ambiguity and people understand every word I say. When I preach, I don't know how to hoop and holla and do all that other stuff. I wish I did. Yeah, it makes it much more entertaining, for lack of a better word. But do people really understand what you're saying after all that hooping and hollering? Probably not. But because I don't know how to do that, people understand every word I'm trying to communicate to them. There is no ambiguity in what I'm saying. There's no hiding it in the hooping and hollering. Okay? Which a lot of the word and stuff gets lost in that. And again, I'm not putting that down. I enjoy it myself. But I don't believe hooping and hollering is effective communication. It's more, in my opinion, it's more show and entertainment than it is effective communicating. In my opinion. Again, though, I do enjoy it. Because in hooping and hollering, it gets you going emotionally. But in the end, emotionalism is not what you want out of people. You want understanding. You want effective communication. All hooping and hollering does is just get you all riled up and emotional and get you happy. But in the end, did you hear anything he said? Did you understand anything he or she said? That's the key. Effective communication. Effective communication. That's the key. That's the key. And when you can effectively communicate with people, you'll not only be able to, you'll be able to impact people. You can make a difference in people. You can make a difference and you can impact people because you know how to effectively communicate. So that's my little spiel, my little rant, whatever you want to call it, for today. And I hope you get something out of it. If you did, leave a comment below. If you got any more insights on effective communication, anybody in the military out there, any leaders out there, drop a comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'd like to hear from you. As always, be respectful in anything you post. We don't have to agree, but we can agree to disagree and have real and true effective communication. So that'll end it for today. I hopefully will see you tomorrow. I'll post another one tomorrow. I will do my best. I have drill tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. I'll try to see if I can post something on tomorrow. But I will leave you for today. And again, I hope this impacts and touches somebody. And I hope you get something out of it. All right. Until next time, God bless you.